Everyone sounds confident when the numbers go up. But what happens when the numbers go down? Or worse, they plummet. Most business professionals, even native speakers, get nervous, describing bad news or big changes. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to describe the same table of numbers in 3 different ways. Maybe from a low confidence level, maybe kind of an average confidence level. And then I'll show you how a native English business speaking professional might describe this same table of numbers. And in the end, you're going to know how to stay calm and very professional, even when the numbers look bad. Last week, I gave you another video about how to talk about just numbers in general. And some of you said, hey, that's great, but how do we talk about this when the numbers are really bad? Because obviously that happens. Numbers aren't always going to be good, and you've got to deliver different kinds of news. That's what's most important. I guess a big piece of advice at the beginning here is when you got to talk about this stuff in English, don't worry about your English. Don't worry so much about memorizing what you're going to say, but be able to describe these things naturally and with feeling and with emotion, and it really helps. So as you get better with this and you get more confident, you can use a video like this to really explain what you're trying to show. So let's go through this table. This table shows website visitors, and it shows these website visitors from January to June, going through each month, one by one. Traffic goes up in the first 3 months, drops sharply in April, recovers a bit in May, and then falls again in June. Now, if you're at the lower confidence level here, you might end up saying something that sounds like this. This table shows our website visitors. The numbers went up in February and March, then they went down a lot in April. They went up again in May, but went down again in June. These words are correct. I pronounced all the words right. My grammar was good. But, it sounded so uncertain. It sounded so flat. It sounded like I had no confidence. Because if I don't have confidence being able to explain these numbers, the people that I'm explaining it to might think I have no confidence in my own company. And they're very concerned about that. So even when we've got bad numbers, we need to be able to show more confidence as we go through and do this. Part of that is adding emotion, adding feeling. Part of it is maybe using a little bit more sophisticated vocabulary. And obviously this is where most people start, and that's okay. But let's take a step up here and see if we can make it sound much more confident. So as we look at this, let's say we go up a level and we go to maybe a more of an average kind of confidence, or something where we're giving really clear business English. We could say something like this. And notice the feeling I have in my voice. The table shows that website traffic increased in the first quarter, peaking in March. Then it dropped sharply in April, recovered slightly in May, and declined again in June. That sounds more confident. You're using words like peaked or dropped sharply and recovered slightly. I'm not just reporting the numbers and this went up and this went down, but instead I'm kind of telling a story and summarizing the story behind the numbers. And that's what makes it much, much easier to listen to if you are the listener in this case. Let me go through just a couple of these words. So peaked, be like a mountain peak. And a peaked is to reach the highest point during some kind of time period. Recovered, well, that means that it went up again after it had some type of fall before. So for it to recover, it must have gone down at some point, and then it went back up. So maybe it started here, went down here, and it came back up here. And that would be something that recovered, like a patient in the hospital. At one time, they were healthy, then they got sick, and then they recovered. And those are just really good words that you can use to make this sound even better. But again, follow me by using the same tone and intonation and add a little feeling or some pauses to this, as I talk about often. It really works well. You've got to believe in your numbers, even if they're difficult numbers. Have some feeling with them. Show confidence in your company, in your numbers. Okay? Let's take a look. If we go up one more level here, maybe this would be somebody that has really high confidence, kind of a native-like professional, talking about these same numbers from this same simple table. Let's take a look. What's this going to look like here? This table illustrates significant fluctuations in website traffic over 6 months. Visitor numbers rose steadily through March, peaking at 70,000 before plummeting in April. Although traffic rebounded slightly in May, it dropped sharply again in June, ending the period at a low of 30,000 visitors. Now, that's professional and confident. Your objective is to be composed, really calm, composed, and be very specific. You can't hide behind your numbers. Words like plummeted or rebounded and ending at a low really help you explain the data clearly without extra emotion. And this is how confident professionals talk about performance, even when it's not positive, because this happens all the time. So let me give you a little bit of definition here for some of these words. Plummet, really common word. Unfortunately, when things go down a lot, they just plummet. And it really means they fell really quickly. And so that's what plummet means, something where it falls very quickly. A rebound is when something rises again after falling. Similar earlier to recover. So a rebound would be something fell and then it rebounded. And it's a really great, useful, and common word to use as numbers are going up and down. Also, the word fluctuation. And fluctuation means to go up and down and have some kind of change. Maybe there's not some big pattern to it. So these three words, plummet, rebound, and fluctuation, are fantastic words. I'm going to take a minute and go into a little bit of detail here about one of those words. Let's talk about the word fluctuate. So fluctuate is the verb, to fluctuate. And this is a really common word. It's a great word. And I want you to use this in your vocabulary. So I think about it as being able to pronounce it like this, where there's some different sounds in here. And the middle sound is the word you. And I think if you can get the word you out, it'll make sense. So let's make up a word for the beginning. Fluct. Fluctuate. And fluctuate means it goes up or down over time. So instead of saying the numbers went up and down, you can say website traffic fluctuated throughout the first half of the year. It's simple, it's clear, and it's really confident. And it's just great business professional vocabulary. So make fluctuate part of your business vocabulary, words, terms, and phrases. Become confident in the pronunciation, become confident using different ways to use this in your own way. And I think you really like this word. So let's hear these three different versions again. I want to go through each of these one by one. Same table, same numbers, but the way you describe these things really changes everything. And that's what we want to be able to do. Okay? So confidence isn't about hiding bad results and bad numbers. It's about describing them clearly, calmly. And that's what really works well. So let's go through these three again. Are you ready? The first one was kind of at this low confidence level. The table shows our website visitors. The numbers went up in February and March. Then they went down a lot in April. They went up again in May, but went down again in June. Okay? Now, let's notice the difference here as we kind of go to a little higher level, this maybe more average kind of confidence. The table shows that website traffic increased in the first quarter, peaking in March. Then it dropped sharply in April, recovered slightly in May, and declined again in June. It's starting to sound pretty nice, isn't it? Let's go to kind of what a native speaker might say. This table illustrates significant fluctuations in website traffic over 6 months. Visitor numbers rose steadily through March, peaking at 70,000 before plummeting in April. Although traffic rebounded slightly in May, it dropped sharply again in June, ending the period at a low of 30,000 visitors. There you go. 3 different ways to say the same thing. And that really works well. So I hope that you practice these, become confident using these, and really get comfortable using numbers in English to be able to describe charts, tables, and graphs. Let me know what you enjoyed out of this video. I'll talk to you very soon. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share your comments, and I also invite you to learn your Business English Confidence Score. You'll find the link in the description below this video.